Hello, IVOX. This session is on Cloud Init and Cloud Config improvements. So there's a Gabi doc I pointed at there, and the launchpad there I pasted into IRC also. Prior to UDS, I sent out a mail about to a couple lists asking for input on what could be improved. And I didn't get a lot of feedback, which isn't uncommon with my mails, but the feedback I did get was actually mostly to not do fancy new whiz-bang things. So it's moderately sobering, but I kind of actually agree with it. The big comment was anything that would be magic. Good morning, everyone at IRC. Anything that would be magic should be off by default, basically, and you can pass in configuration that would turn, magic-ish behavior on. An example of what some people found to be magic behavior was the default mounting of ephemeral drives. That's going to stay, but anything else we would add, we would pretty much default the behavior to off, and if someone wants to turn it on, they can turn it on. There's a list there in the Gabi document on general things I did collect and links to them, and I guess I'll just kind of go through that, and then we can kind of ideas that I had or received, and then we can, if there's questions or comments on things, we can do that. We can take them. Probably shouldn't have started right at 9 o'clock. Chuck, can you close the door? IVOX, lots of people walked in right at the end there, so that was most of the noise. All right, so starting over, this is a Cloud Init session talking about ways to improve Cloud Init or Cloud Config. Basically, there's a wiki document or a wiki Gabi doc up, and I'd like to go through those things there, just kind of one by one, and then take suggestions for input. So the first one on the Gabi document list was support for easier or more common archive formats. So the archive right now, Cloud Init kind of supports multiple parts of input, and the archive format that it uses is my multi-part, which is moderately arcane. Although some people have pointed out that almost all of us here have used my multi-part every day. But I'd like to add, let's see. So the implementation that's there, the one comment I got was someone was actually trying to create multi-part content and doing so from Java, and he struggled for quite a while before he was able to get it to work. It is quite easy in the end, but it was just not, it didn't just work. So so I've considered two sorts of input that I would the other two types of input I consider would be, one would be just like a tarball where files and then with files and then like a metadata file that said what types they were. The issue with files with tar is that you don't get the, I use the content type header in the MIME. It's helpful to easily, deterministically to see what something else is. And then the second format I was considering would just be a different YAML, a wrapper YAML syntax to where each top level element could be a part. Because, and the reason for that one, and maybe I can just use that instead of tar entirely, but people were wanting to just, like in an editor window, be able to type things, and it's not a very human thing to type multi-part MIME. But YAML is much more friendly. So, I thought those would be reasonable. The next issue there is support disabling a cloud init. That was some of the input was just to make sure that things are tested when cloud init is disabled. So if someone wanted absolutely no magic function and just wanted everything to behave as a, wanted to do everything themselves, that cloud init would get out of the way if told to. A lot of things I just don't ever test off because they're default on and it's just a not well-tested path. So, and then several other requests were for just better documentation, examples and documentation on what things do and document all the function as it's added. General, I just don't do that well.
There's at least one example for each thing it can do.
Yeah, in the cloud config syntax. Yeah, and actually the documentation that's there, when the person who was complaining about it, I pointed them at the stuff that's there. It wasn't like included in the package in Lucid, or it wasn't as visible. Yeah. Now it's included in the package. It's more standardly there, and he was happy actually largely happy with what was there for Maverick, but it can be improved. The next thing was the Amazon Linux AMIs. They are currently producing pure Amazon Linux AMIs, and they chose to use Cloud Init inside of them, and so they did some work to port that to Fedora-ish systems. And so I haven't gone and pulled that back in, but I want to pull that in. And they made some kind of more general, not be so specific changes, not be so Ubuntu specific changes, and I'd like to pull those in.
Have they actually submitted back to you, or did you have to dig it in?
I got an email from a person there that said, "Hey, we did this. I'd like to try to get it back in."
Nice.
And then I kind of told him, "Yeah, I will do that."
Nice.
But yeah. So I downloaded the source, and that's about it. But,
So I have one question which I think is not on the list yet. The way that certain things work in parallel. Do you intend to change that at some point? Do you have any idea about that?
The package execution and the script execution happening at the same time.
in Lucid now, script execution happens after package execution.
Lucid, you mean?
It's guaranteed in newer Lucid AMIs. That's guaranteed.
Okay, nice.
It was not, and that was sort of a bad decision. But that was fixed. And in Maverick,
It works very fast, but it fails very fast as well.
yes, yeah. In Maverick, everything's serialized now. It's just
Cool.
one top to bottom thing.
Cool.
It's just more predictable.
Yeah,
And I think that's largely what you want.
nice, thank you.
And it's also, in Maverick, what you can actually control the element via cloud config. You can control the order of the elements that are called. So if you wanted to, for some reason, call
Change it.
scripts before you call
Uh-huh.
cloud config, you can do that.
Okay.
And you can also change the frequency with which they're called. If you wanted something to run it, like if you want to turn apt-get upgrade on, you can turn it on to run every time rather than just the first group. Yes, there were a lot of improvements. Lucid, or Mavericks is a lot better than Lucid. So I'll go on down there.
So another feature request.
Can you speak up? No.
Another feature request is, so previously the only way to get what Cloud was doing was getting these console output. Now there's a log file looks like, but it's pretty minimal. It doesn't actually show you any script execution output or anything. Debugging problem, I guess, is the scenario we're trying to get after.
Yeah.
It just shows you the part executing, but it doesn't actually show you what script stand in, stand out.
Yeah. So. Yeah, in Maverick, I got the messages go to syslog, and syslog is configured to go to var log cloud init.log. But yeah, standard out of things goes to the console. Yeah. I think. So the default, so that's where it goes by default. And I'm not opposed, well, we kind of prefer not to change it, but just because that's where it went. But it's easy to redirect your standard in and standard out from almost any programming language, right? So in your scripts or in anything you're doing, if you just close standard in, standard out, or instead of writing standard in, standard out, you write to a file, then you can do it yourself, right? So that was.
Well, most of the time, I guess you could, but you have like a template that to each one. It'd be nice to just have it there.
Well, and
An option for Cloud Config that just does that for them. For all stanzas, that would actually be kind of nice.
yeah. Yeah, so I would accept, yeah, I should
We
probably do that.
We should design it here, but is it feasible
Yeah,
to do? So that's something maybe file a feature request about.
Yeah, I would just get like a single file just for all the script outputs, since it's not really on an
Do you have a file in Cloud Init running? File system?
well, when cloud config runs, the initial init, you're more hampered. File system is read-write though at that point, so.
I wouldn't spend a ton of resources on it, as also Upstart's ability to log things is changing quite a bit,
Yeah.
so that may help with this.
So then you don't have to do it on every line because you can just like change the output of a shell script by either exec into file, exec2 into file, and then all the data goes there, or you can just wrap it in parentheses and redirect it. So it's not like you have to do it on every line, but
Mm-hmm.
and in any other programming language, similar things, But yeah, I think it's reasonable, but that was kind of why I didn't bother with that. It's like, it's easy to change. When we did the AWS trial, we put a script in. We inserted into the instance a script that would run and would call home to register that the instance was up. And so it posted its SSH keys and its IP address, you know, to a URL. I was considering adding that as a general feature, like in Cloud Config, where you could just say, you could give a URL that it would post a request to, saying, hey, I'm up and here's some data about me.
Yeah,
Maybe even just post all of its metadata, you know, so that then the server side can deal with it. But,
web callbacks.
yeah, it's very easily implementable in other things, but
Yeah, it's nice.
So somebody suggested a cloud config option to set the lifetime of the instance. We did this in AWS trial, but it actually came from separate request. But the request was just, you know, you fire lots of times people launch instances and forget about them, or, you know, really just intend to launch it, test something, and be done with it. And the idea was that on launch, you could configure it so that, or an option would say, you know, the lifetime of this is less than an hour, or is 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then Cloud Config would insert an at job, an at job to do a shutdown. It's not an extremely robust way, but it mostly is going to catch your, oh, I forgot and left the instance running all weekend. It's not a huge thing, so I would maybe do it if there was time. But.
Perhaps something interesting as well along the same lines, but perhaps less problematic, is to allow someone to send an email to which a message is sent warning that the machine is on, instead of shutting it down. So at least the person is reminded that the machine
to send an email.
is running.
Yeah, they will be caught by their spam filter because it came from EC2.
Yeah.
There's the hack right now is you could just put an at command to run.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
how we do AWS. We do AWS trial actually from outside the instance terminates it. People see the at jobs and they're like, seriously, you're just shutting the instance down this way? But those are just fail safes in case the data went down.
Along those lines, it could be useful to have to give an instance a budget, you know, where there is a variable. The time aspect's pretty easy, but the network traffic gets a little more difficult.
Yeah, I think
Why? What's the
To keep an instance from spinning out of control while you're, you know, on vacation.
the same reason you want to stop it from running, you might want to, you know, you don't want it to go crazy on network.
Yeah, I want to give this instance $20, and when that $20 is down, $20 is up, I want to shut it down. I mean, the same thing we did with AWS trial. With AWS trial, we said we're going to give this instance 1 hour, and within that hour, you know, we're going to get billed the 8.5 cents for the hour, and we might get another extra 3 or 4 cents for network traffic, fire up BitTorrent or something on it. But imagine an AWS trial that we want to allow to go for a week for the length of the conference. What if we came here to UDS and we gave everyone an instance in the cloud to run for the week? Thereabouts anyway, but to keep anyone from getting too exorbitant, we put $20 in.
Yeah, but that's not about cloud init, right?
Do what?
It's not about cloud init, right?
It's coming straight from the idea that someone suggested to Scott, which is put an app job in place to shut something down. This isn't robust either. This is more taking care of yourself. But.
Right.
Yeah, the difficulties. Yeah, I mean, I know the landscape guys have been kind of interested in accounting, and there's almost no good way to get real accounting of that. Of
Not
what that's going to
inside
cost.
the instance. That's where you start having to rely on the cloud provider to give you stats.
Yeah, I mean, as a general
in.
fail-safe, it would be, you know, you could have some metric in there that would catch something.
It would be nice to have something to do that, but Cloud Init isn't the place to do it. So until something exists like that, Cloud Init can't help.
If there are any cloud providers in the room, it sure would be cool if you could tell inside of an instance how much that instance has cost.
Well, in the Amazon case, you could ask CloudWatch from inside it. But that's not really great.
And we do have a ride scale presence in the room. I wonder, Jeremy, does ride scale do anything like that? You make any attempts to, from inside the instance, monitor billing, or maybe you're not really there?
Has to type fast.
There, you responded. I think that's some metrics.
Okay. And the tools that you put in there, would they be available? Would they be available under an Ubuntu friendly license that could possibly be packaged?
I've seen that's flagging.
Right.
Going on.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were saying. It's very difficult to get actual numbers.
A good segue into rate scale integration, which is something
And
that
that's
on your
the
list.
client affects
Oh.
some metrics, like on network usage and stuff. We just have to be able to associate what was the internal network versus the external network. But
Yeah.
there is available in the forum.
I didn't know you were 20 seconds behind on audio. So I'll keep that in mind. What else? Oh, yeah, so the next one was the next one on the right scale integration?
No, cloud configs that hosting.
Okay. So, yeah, I might as well jump to right scale integration. I talked some, I don't know, let's see, in the initial Hardy images that Ubuntu did, and maybe they were in the very early Karmic ones. We had a right scale init package that basically was a hook for right scale so that they could use our images out of the box. That didn't initially get good favor from
Right scale's
Ubuntu Core
competitors.
Dev review. Well, it was a pretty vendor-specific installation script, sort of in a package, and it didn't go over well with Core Dev with some of the people who were reviewing it for main inclusion. So what I was working with Jeremy, and what we're thinking of doing, if I have my mail up, is to basically put a different, rather than forcing right scale to bend to our whim and to start using Cloud Init. They have a large amount of customers that have data and expect it in a given way. We kind of have let's see if I can dig it up. Well, I'll post the details later, but basically there's an additional input type that will correlate fairly well with what they're already doing. And if it sees that type, and it will grab a URL out of it, pull the URL, and then execute it. So that when it sees, basically what will happen is when it sees right scale data, it'll hit a right scale URL that they've generated for it, and it'll execute the response, and then go on with life. So that's how they'll inject themselves into our images without being too problematic to their code. It's a generic hook, though. It's not complete. Anybody else could use it, but it is.
So what's the distinction from what they do and what plugins are already doing today?
They do stuff like, let's see. See if I can type it. Their content kind of looks like
Well, content aside, what does it do? I'm having trouble understanding what they're doing that makes us want to help. Like, CloudInit can run anything. Why wouldn't they just bend to what's in the product?
because it's not in all of their images, and they have a lot. So in the past, they've been just rebundling our images, right?
Okay.
And inserting their stuff into it. And I would much prefer, and they would much prefer, to use our images standard. The reason they're not so, but they are fairly heavily stuck from an infrastructure perspective and from a customer expectation perspective on what they have. And they are
Is what they have open source?
no, but if you launch an instance, you can look at it.
Well, but I think that's not the. I mean, that's.
Then
We should try to help either way, right? But I think that the main question is, it looks like this is just a post back, right?
It's what it is. What they give you is URL encoded data, key value pairs, URLs.
Right, but does that mean that this data is basically posted back to them once the machine boots?
No, they haven't. What happens is their tools inside it read it, parse it, and then do something with it. And so what we're adding is something that would do kind of like
So it sounds to me like that's a lot of effort that they're taking to rebundle, and we would win favor with them by alleviating them from that trouble, but it seems like that's something they could probably do. This is not worth it.
there are users that are involved in it.
I mean, this is a CloudInit hook, so they're going to be launching new instance anyway, so they could just easily adapt to CloudInit.
But users expect to be able to paste, users from RightScale expect to be able to paste to use a given format of user data. And expect it to, then a user insertion code, like there are people who are using it and expect it in the format that it's in. So that would break all of their users and their users' expectations.
And they have tools that are generating these user data. It's not like they're just one-off. They're
Yes.
putting thousands of instances using RightScale's management
Yes.
tools. And I'm just saying, that's great. That's a product that they have that's not open source that, we should give them the hook. But
Yeah.
if, I don't know that we should bend over backwards for a product like that.
But isn't them using this hook in CloudInit effectively changing how they're formatting user data?
They're just adding a new key that would be ignored by other things to their key value list of key value pairs, basically. And so, and they do have to do some changes, but Jeremy's statement is that he's a big, he wants to get to using our images. There are Ubuntu fans there, but the company's large and has lots of things, and they believe that they are the ones that own user data, and we are just.
That's fine. It sounds like it's something that could be done without breaking CloudInit.
Yeah.
And you would take a patch from them. I don't know that I would do it for them.
Well, so again, it sounds like
It's
there's resistance in both sides, and I think we should just talk to them and try to do whatever they need in a generic way.
And that's what I'm trying.
This is,
It's
fine.
easy.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if the format we use for user data would allow people to put different stuff in it and you'd be able to tell it apart? Oh, wait. like mine multi-part. It's a good idea.
Yes, it was, sir. I agree. I'm adding a legacy option. Yeah, I know. It's better than it was. It makes a major vendor able to launch our AMIs. Perhaps we could discuss getting some feedback on how many people launch them. We might have it in. Yeah, that's a canonical thing.
We have canonical customers using it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we should move on from that one personally.
Is there a bug open for that?
No. I would appreciate it. Let's see.
Yeah, it would be awesome if Wright's going to open the bug against Init, asking for that support and submitting a patch.
Okay, so did that get covered? Can you put an action there that Jeremy will open a bug, Jeremy J will open a bug and yeah, I'm kind of afraid of the slippery slope too. That's the big thing.
How many legacies do you have?
Yes. So, cloud config set hostname. Somebody asked for this, and I kind of thought we did a reasonable job of setting hostname now. The way the code works in Maverick and maybe Lucid is basically on first boot, we write the hostname to the internal of the internal hostname to /etc hostname and invoke hostname. And then we only ever do that again. Let's see. If the value we get from the metadata is different than the value we originally wrote. So that basically if the user has modified it, we won't stomp their changes. And there's some logic in there to handle a stop and a start, like in where you would get a different IP address and you had the old value. So, but basically I didn't really understand the request, and I don't understand why they had a problem with what it does. But basically we're trying to.
I think they're trying to set an arbitrary hosting.
You think?
Yeah.
Why would
Agreed,
someone
this
want
comment
to-
is very short.
Why would someone want to set an arbitrary hostname? Can anyone?
Because they don't want it to say dumb you, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
They want it to say my new node that I spawned mydomain.com.
Okay.
There's all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
You can do that with CNAME.
Hmm?
You can do that with CNAME.
But that doesn't change the program's running on the machine
Oh, sure.
reception
Makes
of the
sense.
host name. That's really
Right.
why you would want to do it.
Okay.
Is it's sending messages and they want to see their host name that they injected. And it should be really easy to do.
Yeah.
It's the cloud config thing.
Yeah.
They should open a bug instead of post a 2-line comment.
Well, yeah. I mean,
But we can open it for
arguably,
you.
I went onto a user forums and said, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I got. But yeah, so that's, I think, reasonable. Bob, you're very helpful. There was, so next one's Cloud at C to be used for bare metal. I have to kind of document how it works, but largely, I mean, this was a quick request from Nick, and largely the stuff's there because you can kind of seed Cloud Init via proc command line. or via the command line. So basically it reads /proc/command line, and if it sees some given token, I don't remember what I named it, it will read its user data and metadata from that URL rather than from the metadata service. And that URL can be a file inserted into the instance or something. So largely it's hookable via proc command line.
It's not installed on any CD
That was
installed
brought up.
machines, right? So
Yeah.
when you say it reads those, how do you?
This would be in a, I mean, the only thing you're interested in doing cloud init-like things for on bare metal is if you've done the install, you know, not by a user doing an install manually, right? So
Yeah.
this would be a seeded install that would then write the proc command line, right?
So do our
And would say add the package cloud init.
do our Pixie boots install Cloud Init?
No, but it's easy to add a package via seeds, right?
Yeah.
And
sure.
so people that are doing that would just say add the cloud init package, change the proc command line to this, and then away you go. Ahmed, making them smaller. So this is something we talked about in one of the other sessions. That was in the images discussion. Was we could make the AMIs smaller, potentially. And right now, I think for Natty, our goal is to make them 10 gig. In the future, we could make them smaller, something like 5 or 4 gig, the EBS root ones, and then the user could, if the user launched with it, if the size of the volume that Cloud Init found was not what it could be, it would just resize it up. That would be in Cloud Init, but this I'm interested in feedback on. So the idea was basically on first boot, we would just always call resize2fs/dev/sda1, basically. And then if that was a 40 gig volume, because the user had created it as a 40 gig volume, resize2fs figures that out itself and takes, with no arguments, it resizes as big as it can. And it just works, and it takes like no time at all, like a half a second on a clean file system. So I thought that was pretty nice. The only fallout that I saw of it is if you then do a create image from that instance, the create image will be done with a 40 gig root file system, or that you don't then have, and going down is a much more difficult thing than going up. So I don't know if that's reason to not do it or not.
If you have an option there to turn off that behavior, then you can do both.
Yeah, so, but I couldn't think of, I think that's reasonable for that.
I think that's a magic option, which you spoke about earlier. I wouldn't turn it on by
Yeah.
default.
But see, but I can't think of any reason. I mean, I agree that I said that, and I do agree with that sentiment. But I can't think of any reason in general why you, other than the create image, that you would want a larger root file system, like you would want blank data at the end of your file system. Because if you want blank data, you can just attach a new volume. Like if you want, I don't know.
So how to launch a larger
You do mice, well, on the command line, it's mice block device, SDA1, : integer.
Okay, so is it even in EBS it ignores the size of the root file system itself?
By default on EBS, it does the size that it was originally registered with. And then if you attach with mice block device mapping and you give it a number, it just makes a bigger volume with the same data at the beginning of it. And then, so you basically get a bunch of useless zeros at the end of your disk. Yeah, which I don't know why you wouldn't just attach another disk. If somebody came up with a reason why, like a use case where somebody would want those zeros at the end of a partition, then I'd say no, but I don't know. Anybody have any idea why you would do that?
You could resize on,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I missed why.
Right, so if we, why would you do it other than resizing a file system?
Maybe something that uses block devices natively would have to go that.
And also then use a second block device.
I think
Well, a lot of, there's certainly older legacy things like Oracle that
Yeah.
will just use one block device, but yeah, they always can support one.
No, but I'm saying they would just then, like, you just attach a volume, another volume.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, so
forgetting
that's,
my comments, I don't understand the request.
that's all.
it sounds sensible, and I think that any reason we come up with
Yeah,
would require, additional fiddling with the image, like create initial partition at the end of the disk or something like that. And if you're doing that, you may as well reduce the original one.
yeah.
So I think it sounds
All right.
like the same default.
Okay, so I think, let's see, did that one get captured?
Richard,
Is that it? Is that, did we go through everything on that list?
Yeah. We talked about everything on the original.
Okay. Does anyone else have comments? Or anything to add? Does anyone want to have a break? How do you feel today, Davey?
Hey, David's here.
No, the movie's not playing in here. You're safe. There's a couple more action items really fine, but
Dave, or Ivox, did you have a comment? We can wait. And Rick, did you have one? Or were you saying you wanted to leave?
No, I was, this is not directly related, but I think you're coming to our summit.
Yeah.
If you create a blueprint for how to integrate into OpenStack, I think that would be a great thing to talk about.
I can do that, yeah.
with a different solution for the 20-minute timeout. Metadata. Outside business.
No. But what I was going to do is what we suggested is by default, the installation will be by default. And I'll see it.
Yeah, weakness.
Sorry. Sorry, we're done. Yeah, we had a fairly long-winded discussion on it. I'm going to support it. It is kind of inventing to somebody's given will, but it's more generic. No, I know it's not. And I talked to him. He understands our opinion too. It's very, very reasonable.
I think we should publish, but
Cool. Oh. So this session is almost over. Now we can go.